Prior to the 1870s, the map of the subcontinent was a jigsaw of bordered divisions. Look at Bengal, Madras, and Bombay, distinct territories alongside princely states. Thousands of miles separated them. For an individual in Kashmir, someone in Tamil Nadu felt like a total stranger. Despite these deep divides, every one of these provinces eventually fell under the control of a single external force, the British Empire. The British operated with a distinct hypocrisy. In London, they championed the rights of the individual, but in their colonies, they enforced a rigid racial hierarchy, excluding Indians from the very systems of governance that ruled their lives. By the late 19th century, an educated class of Indians began to notice a pattern. Whether in the North or the South, they were being subjected to the same systemic exclusion and racial bias. This shared experience of being treated as second-class citizens in their own home started to bridge the gaps between provinces, fostering the idea that they were one people with a common interest. By centralizing their power over the entire subcontinent, the British unwittingly provided a single target for every regional grievance, turning local discontent into a collective struggle for identity. Fearing that this growing awareness might turn into organized resistance, the British government passed two aggressive laws in 1878, the Arms Act and the Vernacular Press Act. The Vernacular Press Act targeted Indian-language newspapers. If a publication printed anything that the government deemed subversive or critical of the crown, the authorities had the power to seize their equipment and shut them down instantly. This was an attempt to dismantle the bridge between Indian thinkers and the general public, cutting off the lines of communication that were fueling the movement. Leaders responded by organizing political associations outside the reach of the press. They began holding physical gatherings, turning local social clubs into hubs for political awareness. Attempting to silence Indian voices backfired. The censorship only served as visible proof of the oppression the intellectuals were warning about, driving them to coordinate their efforts more closely. One such group was the Pune Sarvajanik Sabha, an organization whose name signaled its goal, to represent the interests of all people. These groups introduced the concept of sovereignty to the masses, the idea that the people of India should be the ones who decide their own laws and future, rather than existing as subjects to a monarch thousands of miles away. To make this demand for sovereignty more than just an emotional plea, Dadabhai Nauroji provided a clinical economic indictment of British rule. Nauroji's drain of laws theory used data to show Britain's siphoning resources and taxes from Indian provinces to fund its empire. Tracing rural poverty and urban bankruptcy back to these policies, Nauroji made the argument for independence personal for every Indian. His work provided a unified, evidence-based argument that proved British rule was not merely unfair, it was structurally designed to deplete the subcontinent's wealth. The ultimate catalyst for political action arrived in 1883 with the introduction of the Ilbert Bill. The bill was a modest attempt at legal reform. It proposed that senior Indian judges be allowed to preside over court cases involving British subjects, a small step toward judicial equality. The response from the British community was immediate and vitriolic. This white mutiny successfully pressured the government into withdrawing the bill, proving that the British would not tolerate even a hint of legal parity. The failure of the Ilbert Bill was a turning point. It stripped away any belief that educated Indians could earn equality within the imperial system, exposing an unyielding racial hierarchy that placed the colonizer above the law. Leaders realized that small, regional associations were not enough to challenge this systemic racism. The movement needed to scale up. The fallout from the Ilbert Bill led to a new consensus. The only way to challenge an empire was to build an organization that matched its scale. In December 1885, that consensus became a reality. 72 delegates from all over the subcontinent traveled to Bombay. This meeting marked the birth of the Indian National Congress. Regional interests were set aside to form a unified front. Ironically, a retired British official named A.O. Hume played a role in the Congress's formation. He believed providing Indians with a safety valve to air their grievances politically could prevent a more violent, uncoordinated uprising against the crown. But the British administrative system, designed to control a subcontinent, inadvertently linked those distant regions together. By providing the infrastructure and the shared grievances that united these delegates, the empire had essentially helped build the movement that would eventually end it.